Thank you very much. The Director General of the Kenya Urban Roads Authority, Engineer Kenoti, the other invited guests, comrades and especially engineers, good evening. Comrades, power. Comrades, power. Naona mkikuja kukula, you don't say the power that should be said when your president is around. First of all, I want to apologize for coming late. I was actually ready much earlier, by 6 p.m. But unfortunately, I got caught up by issues that were very urgent, and I had to take care of them. A meeting that I had to attend, and I really want to apologize for coming in late. Secondly, I was told by Debbie that there'll be a kind of a fireside chat, and therefore I'll not tire you with a lot of this monologue or this speech. I'll just highlight a few things. Maybe we can continue later on that other session, which I had been briefed about. But I want to say that I'm very, very happy to come here in this dinner, and especially in a meeting with comrades of a university that I'm already also a student. I am taking 2 master's degrees. One in the University of Nairobi, that is MA in economics, but I'm also taking another one, Masters of Economics in Public Policy in KU. I have actually been attended physical classes in KU, and in the UoN there was a blend. Initially we were attending online classes, but lately also we attended some classes that were physical. And therefore I was attending, and it has been very exciting also, not just to learn but also to socialize with fellow comrades. I just want to highlight in 1 minute, because I'm a member of parliament for Kiharu, and the things that were said here are true. I just want to confirm that since I got the opportunity to serve in 2017, those who know Kiharu is a rural constituency, actually the largest rural constituency in the region I come from. We have around 112 public primary schools and over 60 day schools. We have put a lot of weight in education insofar as NGCDF is concerned. And in that respect, we do both the physical or the hardware and the soft. The soft is where we give bursaries and make sure that comrades and other learners are in school. But also the hard part is infrastructure. Of all our public primary schools, all of them look like what we call academies. Those of us who come from shacks, I can see by the look of your faces, there are those who are brought up in Nairobi, but there are many of us who are brought up in rural areas. From here I can tell, I can even pinpoint. So those of us brought up in rural areas, when the good schools are called academies. So most of our schools, or actually all of them, look like such. All our learners go to classrooms that are tiled in a rural constituency, and it's all the classrooms, not just a few of them for photographs, all of them. We also have a program we run called Kiharu Masomo Bora, which takes care of learners in day secondary schools. And we take care of over 10,000 learners, out of which the fees in Kiharu, in our day secondary schools, learners only pay 1,000 every term. The rest we have done some math, we contribute through NGCDF, and we have made it possible for learners across the country to come and learn in Kiharu with only school fees of 1,000 only per term. They eat in school, and we provide other learning materials in those day schools, because Because beyond making education in terms of accessible, we are also deepening knowledge by facilitating textbooks, building laboratories, building libraries, and that is an ongoing process even now that we are doing. Now, I want to go to what brought me here. And I am sure you knew I am not an engineer. Or my background is economics. And it's actually for that reason. Because I don't want to say what engineer would put forth, because I can't compete with him in that arena. Mine is economics. I don't know which is superior, but let me leave it there. I wanted to say, but I think you already know which one between maybe economics and engineering. But the reason you invited me is on the economic side. And I want to paint just a picture, because Debbie came to the office and she enumerated the expectation that you have. That I may not be technical in terms of what you are learning in school, but everything we do in school and what we end up doing afterwards is all around economics, because we exist in an ecosystem of a country, and a fabric of economic growth is economics. And there are two things you look at when you are dealing with policy. And forgive me when I'm talking about these things, because whereas you are an engineer now, or you went to school and pursued civil engineering, I believe majority of us in this hall may not end up building roads or in water. Many of you will also be in policy, in leadership, guiding the broad part of the country, not necessarily the engineering part. And therefore I'll be broad in that manner, because I am sure the specifics were handled earlier. There are two areas you look at when you are managing a country. And there are two policies that are used in management of a country and the growth of it. One, the broad, is monetary policy. And the other broad one is what we call fiscal policy. In the monetary policy is basically what the Central Bank of Kenya or other institutions of that caliber do or engage in their economics. Fiscal policy is everything around interest rates, management of interest rates, of inflation, and all the other areas on that corner. But fiscal policy encompasses everything else. You know, in May, June, in our country, there are two processes we run which are very critical. One is what culminates into what we call finance bill. And the other one is what culminates into what we call the budget in quotes, but you can call them estimates. Now, those two documents encompasses the fiscal policy of government. Fiscal policy is everything about spending and everything about taxation and everything about raising money and spending that money. Everything in that is called fiscal policy. Now, fiscal policy, from where I start and where I sit in terms of the analysis I've done for many countries, including Kenya, is what ends up as far-reaching and shaping the destiny of many economies. The decisions you see leaders take, the decisions you see us making in parliament, the executive making, those decisions are what shapes the destinies of countries. All the countries we may want to study, from the US to the UK, to the Asian tigers, to Africa, to Kenya, where we are today and where those countries are today is majorly out of their fiscal policies, the decisions they took. Now, in that, the country aims to do two things. One of the things that you aim as a policy maker or a policy implementer, the major one is called stabilization. When you see a country stable, for example, in terms of prices, interest rates, in terms of inflation, it is never out of lack is usually based on some engineering, in quotes, economic engineering happening behind the scenes that culminates into that stability. Stability is usually measured in markets, and markets are majorly three. One is commodities market, where we measure it through inflation. The other one is foreign exchange market, where then we talk about exchange rate. And the other one is the money market, and the parameter we use there is interest rate. Stabilizing that needs decision making both on monetary policy and also on fiscal policy. But the more important one that I want to carry all of us along as Kenyans, that we have to embrace facing forward, including engineers in this hall and all the other professionals outside there, is the second part of what policy does. Number one is stabilization. Number two is growth. Fiscal policy majorly is the one that fuels growth in a country. And one may wonder, why is this guy talking about or talking so many jargons? The point is that whatever you face out there as an engineer will be based on a policy and a decision made by leadership. And therefore, no one can remain in the sidelines. That is why, for example, in Parliament being one of the organs of policy, it is a mix of all professions, including engineers, because policy making affects everyone ultimately. And therefore, I don't need to buttress the point. An engineer graduating in Kenya now faces a different environment from an engineer graduating from South Korea today, and faces a different scenario from an engineer graduating from Chad today, or graduating from a university in the UK, and especially being a citizen of the countries I have mentioned. The condition you are facing and the condition they'll be facing is based on some decisions that have been made by their leadership. And that arena of leadership, there is no school that people go to study on being in the executive or in parliament, because everyone has their space there. And I'm sure I'm speaking to some of you as I say so. Now, the countries we want to emulate, and we always look forward to emulating in terms of our small economy like Kenya. Take, for example, the UK, the US, having gone earlier in terms of growth. Just a fiscal policy around industrialization put America ahead of the UK. The UK then came in later. Again, I want you to underline, there is nothing that was invented. What I'm trying to say, see at the US walipata mafuta ama wakapata gold. The only differentiation is decision making that the US leadership made then. When the UK was joining the fray, again, hakuna kitu ilipatikana UK tukaambiwa sasa kuna gold ama platinum. The platinum then was decision making by leadership. Then later on, of course, we have heard about Asian tigers. And these are countries I am always very proud to quote, because in a generation of our parents, our country, Kenya, was at the same level with those countries. You can imagine that Kenya was at the same level with South Korea, with China, just in the generation of our parents or our older brothers and sisters. Again, decisions of leaders made an influence on what the countries are today. That the GDP per capita of a Kenyan then, in the 1960s, was equivalent to a South Korean then, and equivalent to a Chinese then. And now, we are talking about a South Korean being richer in terms of GDP per capita more than 20 times a Kenyan. There is nothing different that, there was no change of weather. There was no change of minerals. The only change that was there is the decisions that the leadership of South Korea, for example, General Park made, the decision of Deng Xiaoping from 1978 made in China. The only difference is that and what the leadership in Africa and Kenya made. And therefore that calls us that we also have to stop now pointing fingers, and especially as scholars, including engineers here, that if the decision making of leadership is so far reaching into a destiny of a country, then we cannot remain in the sidelines and then only blame those who are there. We have to take up the matter and enter there also and be part of the good decision making for the benefit of our country. Unaniangalia namna gani? As I go to the conclusion, maybe the other matters we can handle later in the other show. Let me tell you, comrades, every one of us here, everyone without exception, want to graduate and become rich. I am surveying tables here. I have not seen a table of people who are graduating aspiring to be poor. Now, there is a story I always give. When I was graduating in KU, my first degree, and I hosted people for the graduation dinner, my parents, I told them to pray for me, not to get a job. Not to get a job. Now, when you start talking about this, you may be confused with the satire we see of public speaking and motivation we see on social media, where a person says, I became a millionaire from one egg. I'm sure you have seen that satire. I became rich by starting with 1 shilling. That's not where I'm going. If you study the Forbes list, the Bloomberg list of the richest, the wealthiest, in terms of their net worth, I have never seen a description of a person listed there that this is an employee of this company. I always see the owners of stakes, owners of shareholdings, founders, or investors. So as you graduate, take some time, for example, go through the list of 1,000 richest people in the world. It gives you many things there. One, it shows you that entrepreneurship is a very good arena if you want to make it in terms of making money. And I think majority of us are in that race of making money. Don't look at me like it's because of my second name that I am in the race of making money. It's not just the people of where I come from who want to make money, it's all of us. So check there. You'll see something profound. One, entrepreneurship is a very good route. But number two, it helps you to look at the sectors. You know, base my thinking always. First degree is the foundation. It doesn't mean that everyone who is graduating as a civil engineer or who will be graduating as a civil engineer has been cemented into only doing civil engineering. I don't believe that. Just the same way I did BA, my first degree. It doesn't mean you continue doing a profession called BA. Just the same way teachers and the rest. So I am back to the sectors. When you study there, you are able to see the sectors of the current economic situation of the globe and the future, so that even as you step out, you are able to see where you fit. Where are the opportunities? And it may intrigue you, actually. If you look at the people in the US industries making most of the money, you realize it is tech. 10 years ago, it was finance. In Africa now, when you come and study the richest, you realize they are industrialists in the industry or manufacturing, but it is majorly dominated by service industry and especially finance. You go to a place like France, you realize it is fashion. Why am I saying about these things? It guides you at this basic level. All of us at our age, it can be the basis where we are. It helps you to see where are the opportunities in the current world and where is the world going. How comes in the entire Forbes list, there is no one listed there that those people do business in agri? There are no people who are making money in the agri side of the economy. I mean, that's for you to discover and then take your position. But I want to challenge us as we step out. Let us not just look at going to Engineer Kenoti to get a job, going to Kenha to get a job, those in the water sector going to add the water and the rest. Let us look at how we can blend whatever we have learned in school with what the world is now in terms of tech, how we can bring that together and blend it between being an economist like myself, how I can also take part in blending that with tech, because basically that is where the world is now. Being an engineer in the water sector or the road sector or the other sector, how I can blend the basic knowledge I have with tech to enlarge my opportunities for today and tomorrow. Let us spend some time in that. And lastly, I have seen there is gain into also thinking. It looks banal to talk about thinking, but you may realize here as comrades, as engineers, we never actually give ourselves time to think. As a politician, retreating just to think, it is only through deep thinking that you are able to see the kind of things I'm talking about and bring them to a level where they are usable to you as a human being. Let us also invest in that solitary thinking, thinking deep. Let's not just be active vessels. We are just helter-skelter here and there. Let's also invest time in thinking. Out of thinking, we make the right decisions. Out of the right decisions, we are able to leap forward faster. Thank you very much. May God bless you.
Thank you so much. Before you sit, allow me to invite